I don't have a ton of like questions. We'll just talk about what we do.
All right.
That sounds interesting.
It might be really boring, but
I'm gonna say, since we're just talking about Sunday mornings, like what we do for Sunday morning. I mean, Chris and I can get into the nuts and bolts and into the weeds real fast. Real boring.
for some, but there will be a very small segment of people that are like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
So we shoot for it.
Yeah.
We're very nuanced.
Sure, we'll go with that word. It's niche. Yeah.
It's true.
Thank you guys for joining the WIN meeting. We've got the truth is Chris has been here for every single podcast. He's just been over there. And Andrew, it's been a little while since he was on the podcast. So why don't you guys introduce yourself for the people? Chris, who are you? Why are you here?
So I am, I guess if you want to go by titles, the production director of sorts. And then also IT, which has kind of been the more recent thing. Dab in anything that's audio, visual, lighting, and pretty much all the tech stuff, if you will.
If it plugs in or runs on a battery,
Yeah, that's
tends to fall
Basically.
under your purview.
at some level, yeah, it does.
Sooner, one way or another, sooner or later. Yeah.
In the entirety of the building too.
Right, that's what
Oh,
it
that's
is. Like
true.
everywhere. Like if it, like I said, if it powers on,
Yeah.
it's probably something you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in pretty much every single ministry at that, from walking the door to check-ins,
Yeah.
and you've got a little sticker and label to
Yep.
what goes on online, and even this podcast behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Andrew reminding people.
Yeah, I'm
Who
the
the
worship
heck you-
director. Yeah, I mean, pretty much all the preparation that goes into equipping our volunteers on Sunday morning, from the band to even Chris's tech team, all that stuff. I'm doing all that work behind the scenes. So,
Yeah.
and then also on stage, obviously.
Of course, yeah. So I'm excited. We were kind of joking around just a few minutes ago, but I really am excited about this conversation we're going to have, because I'm sure you guys get this question as often as I do of like, oh, so like, what do you do? Right? And
I don't preach.
And don't you do maybe?
Well,
it's-
context.
That's fair.
It is fair.
This, Sundays don't just happen. And we talk a lot about like ministry and other ministries and stuff. But the truth is, when it comes to church and what most people expect in our services, the main thing of what we all do is our Sunday gatherings, our Sunday worship services. And for us, for this team, that's our baby. That's what we have to handle, what we have to take care of. And no, unfortunately, it doesn't just all magically happen. So kind of dubbing this episode "How to Make a Sunday," and it was interesting when I said that out loud when I was talking to myself, titling these out.
Yeah.
It did remind me of it kind of is like making like an ice cream sundae. Like, you have your main components that you must have. You have your dish, you have your ice cream, you have your hot fudge or whatever. But then there's the toppings. Like, what do we want to make this sundae be like? Is this a more plain one? Is this like a go all out? Is this banana split? Is it So anyway, that's what we're talking about today. Giving people a little insight into what we do and why and how that all comes about. So
Yeah.
So let's start with what's a week look like for us. So, Andrew, let's talk a little bit about first, like how we plan.
Yeah. I mean, it really does all start with Darren's sermon.
Yeah.
That really, that at the core for all that we do, it starts with his sermon.
Well, and zooming out a little bit from that, it's really like the series.
The series, yeah.
Right. Even further back than that, right? And so we have our creative meeting once every however often. It's usually once a month, but really the intent is that it's at least before every series comes up, where we come around all the ideas of what maybe people realize that I design all the graphics and like the bumper video stuff, all that stuff that people see. We do that all in-house. Generally, that falls to my plate. Sometimes, other people are involved.
Yeah.
so we get that established. What's the feel of the series going to be like? What are the feel of the sermons? And then to your point, Darren starts writing those sermons.
Yep.
And then once he sends them to us, that's when we start
That's
digging
when we
in
get
and-
into the digging in of the weeds of, what songs we're going to sing.
Yep.
And that falls all under the paradigm of something that has existed here for a while, of a model of how we choose songs and how those songs are listed out, trying to keep our church, not singing every Spotify library that exists out there, which we're talking about millions and millions of music out there, but trying to keep it to where when you walk in, you're not singing something that you don't know, and you're not, we're really trying to create distraction-free environment on Sunday morning, and that goes even to the songs that we sing as well.
Yeah, let's talk about our library just a little. So this was something actually Matt, your predecessor, introduced and established here as kind of a structure.
Yep.
We have around 40 songs that we would consider our current library of songs, the ones that we do most of the time.
Yep.
Then we have a set of what we would call standards, where if we have a situation like a couple weeks ago, where the soundboard decided to just not work.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that coming up.
Oh, geez.
But basically, we would expect everybody to be able to sing those songs because they know them that well. We have those, and we have some hymns, and then we have our new songs that are coming up.
Comes out to about 70, 80 songs.
Yeah,
total.
that are possible for us to sing, and about 40 of them are normal ones that we do use.
Exactly.
That helps keep us from being boring, repetitive.
Yep.
But also keeps it so that everybody knows the songs.
Yep.
So that they can actually sing them, because that really is the goal, is that we have a church that sings, not just a church that shows up and listens to really good singing.
Yep.
Which is very possible. We could easily do that, but that's not the goal.
Yeah.
And so why don't you walk through also maybe the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 a little bit?
Yeah.
Because we kind of delineate these songs in some categories to help us with our planning.
Yeah. Since I'm so new here, I'm learning this, so feel free to correct me if I'm missing something. But, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a model that a church called Vertical Worship kind of started, and Matt, my predecessor, kind of started instituting it here. Basically, a 1 is a call to worship. It's a song that's going to invite you into the moment. It's going to set the tone for the Sunday. And then you have 2s and 4s, which typically are transitional. Sometimes they'll sound a lot like a call to worship, or they might sound more personal, or like a corporate type feel in the language. And then you have 3, which are that horizontal. It's personal testimony. It is corporate testimony. It's language that talks about our own experience with God, both as the individual, but then also as the collective, like us together. We've experienced this about God. And then 5s, which are completely vertical. We're singing only to God. We're singing about His nature, His character, who He is. We're celebrating together as a family how He exists, basically. And then, like I said, those 2s and 4s, they basically function
kind of
as
in between them.
In between that stuff. So they'll transition us from one of those songs into another.
The way I often explain to people is if you think of it in like a 45-degree angle. And that 1 is the flat. The church all being on one common ground, and then 2 is right in between. The 3 is the me. And then 4, me and God, and then 5 being totally vertical toward God.
It's a great way to look at it.
That's the visual that I use to help.
For sure.
So that said, that's the way we're in charge of not just planning the songs, but we take care of, this team works on the whole service. So that's when we'll get into Mondays. We have lunch every Monday. And that's always fun. Probably the most fun part is trying to pick where we're going to eat. Tiffany comes with us too, but we do eat a lot of good food on this team.
We do.
Before we jump into the next thing, here's a good question. What's the favorite place that you guys like us to do our lunch meetings at?
You can't go wrong with Fusion, because you can get a little bit of everything there.
That's true.
And it's all just...
You get a lot of bit of everything there.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's huge.
Right, yeah. It's true, though.
Yeah.
And Scholars, we go to Scholars.
Scholars. If we're tight and try to get in and out pretty quick, since it's just
right
on
up the road. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're usually pretty quick.
for sure.
And it's always good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And good
Very
wings.
consistent.
Tiffany needs chicken wings, and so
Yes.
that's a
That is a thing.
yeah. You being new,
I was
you
actually
haven't been to most of these places a lot.
I
so-
haven't, no. And I was actually pleasantly surprised by Gringos.
Oh yeah,
You know,
Gringos is good,
just because, you know,
The guy
being
from California.
California, I got exposed to Tex-Mex real fast. I didn't realize that
We don't have corn in
that
our
there were
Tex-Mex.
memberships involved with
Right.
with Gringos. Learned that going to
Yep.
lunch with you guys and Darren. I didn't realize he had the membership.
He's a passionate member.
He was, yeah.
Yes.
Wow. I was
He's a
really
fan.
blown away. And I've met multiple people who also have those memberships now.
Yeah, it's worth it. You know, if you go there very often at all,
Yeah.
it is good stuff though.
Yep.
It's really good. Anyway, okay, well, good.
And yours?
Oh, I don't know. I like all of them.
Well,
Favorite.
Being the burger guy.
See that's that's different though. Like it's one thing to say my favorite burger. It's another thing to be like this is my favorite one for us to go to lunch to.
Okay.
Probably Scholars. Most consistent. Like I can get multiple things, and it's fast, and it's usually relatively quiet in there. We can have our meeting. From
true.
my seat, it's a very effective place to
For sure.
have our lunch meetings. But anyway, I do love, and we do that on purpose for just to give a little insight. Yes, we could easily do that here. We could all bring our lunch and whatever, but I love that part of what we do is go out and spend some money in the community and support a local business.
Yeah,
like that's
for sure.
I think is a important part of being part of a community is that you support that community. And so doing just that little thing of consistently going out and giving a little
for sure.
and also getting good food back from it is always a good thing. So
Yep.
anyway, so we'll get into what we're talking about for Sunday. And like usually Andrew and I have songs worked out-ish at least.
Yep.
And then Chris, you kind of, help us walk through what the service itself looks like. So give the people a little bit of a picture of what I think people understand. You pick songs. But let's
But
talk
it's
about,
not like song picking where it's your favorite or it's the one you want to play or
Oh,
it's
for
the
sure
one you
not.
want to
Yeah,
sing. No,
definitely
there's a
not.
purpose to
definitely.
it.
Yeah,
For sure.
And to backtrack for half a second, the constructing of a service, we take from Darren's overall big vision,
Yeah.
whatever that sermon series may be, or the feel, a vibe, if you will, for the moment, right?
Yeah.
And then we literally construct everything around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's in a series, great, because then it gives us more time to set those things, like jarology, right? That's why you see the jars out in the foyer. That's why you see the same color schemes everywhere. We try to package it all together.
Yeah.
Down to the songs. I
Yep.
mean, it's not just things that we pick and choose because we like them.
Yeah.
There's a purpose to them, and most people don't understand that there is those levels of worship.
Yeah.
In the sense of how does it reflect to me? Is it me and God? Is it me going straight to God? All of those things, and we package, and a lot of times we'll even change.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
something in the sermon, once we get it from Darren, we read through it. All of us do actually. We read through it, look at it, and go, "Wait, that song's not going to fit here."
Yep.
Oh yeah, that happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say like usually about 3 out of 5.
Yep.
We're usually pretty.
Spot on.
We do about 5 songs on a Sunday.
Yep.
Sometimes 6, sometimes 4.
Mm-hmm.
Depends. But yeah, usually 3 out of 5 are pretty
close.
solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have things that we, but yeah, then or he'll use a certain scripture. And it's like
Yep. This
Scratch
goes,
that one.
Scratch
we
that.
got to go.
We got to get
right.
this song in
Right.
there.
Yeah.
For sure.
well,
Well, and gratitude is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
I remember when we had a conversation about the song, we talked about the things we liked and didn't like about the song, and we were like, "Man, where could we possibly plug this in?" And I remember as soon as we'd gotten Darren's first sermon for the Generosity series, you texted me back. He's like, "I don't know how I missed this, but God told me like." This song is about being grateful, why wouldn't we sing this song during a generosity series?
That's it, yeah. and to that point, that's how generosity starts is by us having a posture of humility and gratefulness for what we have.
Exactly.
And realizing it's not ours in the first place. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it is cool how God brings those things together.
For sure.
But no, it's definitely not about favorites or whatever.
Not at all.
I mean, we're pretty harsh on ourselves with like even the songs we're talking about adding, and it's one of those things that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 helps.
Yeah.
If we have a ton of these songs in the one category, even though another good one's coming up. Like, well, we don't need that one right now.
Right.
It helps us stay balanced.
Yep.
It helps keep us from being very self-indulgent. Something that if you were to be very like, consulty on and just kind of critique a lot of church services, modern church services, that kind of what happens. There's a lot, naturally, a lot of threes get sung.
Yes.
A lot of songs about me and what I'm working through and what God has done for me. And there's lots of good around those songs, of course. But that creates, not purposefully, but it incidentally creates a very self-centered worship service. Yeah. If you're only singing songs about God loves me, I need help, He wins the victory for me. Yeah. And not that that's not true. Right. But it ain't all about you. No. And it's about us, and ultimately it's really about Him and making sure that we sing at least a song every Sunday that is only purely about Him, lyrically speaking, especially. Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge, huge deal for us.
And that takes us into a Monday where we're not only looking at what we just did, but what's coming up. It's kind of a both ends, right? And we're, usually reviewing on a Monday of what went right, what went wrong, what could be better. And that's a whole caveat by itself. But then it's also looking forward. And a lot of times it's beyond the creative meeting. Oh, yeah. Creative is all that big picture stuff that we do, like big picture, things that are stage sets and lighting sets and all those things that change. But the Monday is going, okay, here's what we got coming up, down to what that sermon may be for that week, what the feel is, because like in the tech side of it, I call ourselves the atmosphere architects, right? Yeah. We're there to help support what y'all are doing to create the right mood. Case in point, it's a great happy song that we're singing straight to God. It's a 5, and in the room it's dark and red. That doesn't transcend very well. You're setting the wrong mood. And we, to Andrew's point of getting out of the way and not being a distraction, that's where tech comes in. Yep. Because it can go bad real quick. One missed cue, one miss, something didn't trigger right or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And it's that proverbial, everyone in the audience stops, turns around and looks at the tech booth because everybody notices. But the team...
the best thing that can happen is that nobody knows you exist.
Exactly. And, the team that we have here is incredible because in and out, there's on a low end 12, on a high end 15 volunteers every single week. Yeah. There are some that you don't even see. They're behind closed doors. Doing the broadcast. They're, a lot of them you see running around doing cameras or in the dark somewhere or behind stage. And we do a really good job of just staying out of the way, especially in the room setting that we have where everyone's looking at each other.
Yeah. That was a big thing to navigate, honestly, when we made that switch. And with it being so different than what most churches do, and there was a lot of figuring out from that side. How do we make this still sound decent? How do we not have feedback every week with the microphones out in front of the speakers? How do we how do we light this thing so that people aren't in shadows? Yep. And we're not blinding people. Yeah. And we're not, and it looks good on camera. Yeah. Yep. And it's a lot to process, and a lot, like I tell Darren often, what we try to do here every Sunday is a pretty small window of success. Yeah. Of hitting like an absolute home run. Right. When we get it just right, we're threading the needle pretty good. Yeah. When it does work out, which is why this planning thing is such a big deal, and what we do is important.
Well, I think that's evident in our team, like even all the way up to Darren. Like it's all done in service to. We don't want, like to Chris's point, we don't want you to walk away saying, "Man, can you believe this happened in the service?" We want you to be walking away talking about God. We want you to be talking about His Word. We want you to be talking with each other about what's going on in each other's lives. And hopefully what we've done on Sunday morning is in service to that. If we've walked away and you're thinking something different, then we've ultimately missed the mark, and we've not thread that needle like we're trying to shoot for.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about like being genuine and transparent and authentic and all that stuff. Yeah. And that is only possible when the work has been put in on the front end.
Yep.
That we're not thinking. I mean, part of us has to think through that stuff.
Sunday morning is execution time. It's not
Yeah.
planning time. It's not what are we going to do?
No.
It's to take all the plans that we put in place and just execute.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And to worship.
Yeah.
And to, be spoken to and moved ourselves.
Yeah. Hear God's word. Yeah.
Yeah. It's if we're not able to do that because of whatever, lack of preparation
Yep.
or insecurity or, not confident if this thing's going to work or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, we've also kind of gotten to a place where that's when we say, yeah, let's not do that then.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it's going to hinder.
Yeah.
Which takes us to a couple of weeks ago.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah. All that said, we do work with tech.
Yeah.
And everybody knows, like,
In an aging building.
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, and with like layers upon layers. The way I describe our tech scenario, it's like when you buy a house that has, like, if somebody didn't ever remove the wallpaper and they just kept putting more wallpaper on to make it look better.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff we deal with here, because it's an older building and because stuff was just kind of
Added on.
fixed as it went kind of thing. A lot of times we start digging in, and by we, I mean Chris starts digging into stuff. He literally digs in.
Yes.
Andrew and I more theoretically dig in. Every now and again, he has us get our hands dirty, but most of the time it's him crawling under the stage or whatever. But that's what it's like to me. Like, you get one piece of the wallpaper off, and why is there more wallpaper here?
Yeah.
Oh, there's not one more wallpaper. There's 8 more wallpaper.
Yes.
So you got to get all the way down and figure out what the real...
Pull everything out and start over.
Yeah. But yeah, a couple weeks ago, a couple Sundays, I'm going to tell this story from my perspective. Y'all can tell the story from your perspective.
Okay.
So I walked in, it was like 7:15. I wasn't needing to leave from stage that day, so it was just a few minutes later than what I normally get here. And I walked in, and come back to the sound booth, and you guys are both back there already. Nobody said anything, which was weird. Usually, everybody's like, "Hey, good morning." We're not like super morning people. We're not excited to be here at 6:45.
No.
But it's usually pleasant and cordial and whatever. And and if Chris has had his 3 cups of coffee, he's good.
He's very cordial. Yes.
Less so, if not. That said, so when I get to the sound booth and I'm like, "Hey guys," and you all both gave me this look.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I couldn't tell at first if it was a look of like you were messing with me, like, or you're mad at me for, I don't know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "What's going on?" And anyway, so
I think simultaneously both said the same thing. Not good.
Yeah.
That's
Simultaneously.
Yeah.
So tell me what was your morning who got here first, by the way? Was it Andrew?
I got here first, yeah. And I went through the usual routine, starting everything up like I've been instructed to by Chris. Turn on the amps, which then
basically whoever gets here
gets
first,
everything
we start powering everything on, getting everything ready.
And
Yeah.
the soundboard loaded something that had happened before. We were not unfamiliar with what essentially amounts to Windows BIOS popping up.
Yeah.
I had just never dealt with it, so I just gave the usual, nod to Chris via text saying, "Hey, this popped up again, just letting you know so you have something to deal with." He came in and started working on it, and man, it just it only got worse from there for us, because everything else was set up, everything else was running, everything else was really, really good, and then just that one thing, and I'll let Chris take it from there.
So, suffice to say, it was an issue that when I went to the manufacturer, they flat out told me, "No, this never happens."
And you're like, "Yeah, it does, because it just did."
It just did.
Yeah.
They're like, "No, that's never supposed to happen." And so
Yes, we understand.
We're not disputing.
yeah.
Supposed to happen.
So it was one of those moments where you give it, the X amount of minute test, right?
Right.
I'm going to try what I know. I'm going to see what I can do, reboot, and to no avail in this case. And so that, the blood pressure starts dropping in you because you're like, okay, what's the contingent plan because, oh my gosh, everything hinges on sound.
Yep.
You know, it's not just a little room to where we could sit like this and talk and you hear just fine.
Right.
I mean, you've
And
got
it's not just affecting the worship; it's affecting Darren.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
all the way down to even what you see and hear online because of how signal flow, blah, blah, blah. So, and I probably gave it 10, 15 minutes worth of time.
It's about,
And then said, okay, this is not going to work. It's not coming up. And so then that's when we kind of all put on different hats immediately at that point. Like, what's our plan? What are we going to do? You were working on going, okay, I guess we're just going to strip everything back and do an acoustic. And meanwhile, mind you, the entire band's up there, sitting on stage with mics in hand, all these things just kind of going, oh, what's going on? What do we do?
Yeah, to give people, so generally on Sundays, the band, who is all volunteers, outside of Andrew and myself, they usually get around 7:45. We have a practice, run through, rehearsal, whatever you want to call it, at 8. We're usually done with that about 8:45. Yep. And then we walk through the service, and then by 9, we are ready to go for the 9:30 service. That's the general Sunday morning schedule for us. And so the band is there, at least trickling in. At this point, it was around 7:30 when we decided, like, we're going to see if we can grab the M32, which M32 is the other soundboard.
Which is being used by the students in the source.
So
so we pulled, at that point, it was, I knew what we had, and I knew that, well, first of all, that board is what we consider smaller. So we have X amount of inputs on our board in here. We weren't going to be able to use all those because it is a smaller board. So it was, okay, what's the primary? And so I knew at that moment that we were going to have to switch, and we could do it. There wasn't a whole lot of extra things to pull in to do to make that run. So Jeremiah and I, we went out there, and you grabbed like speakers, I grabbed the soundboard, I grabbed the other end of the soundboard, which is called the Snake, and we just literally feverishly plug in and play as fast as we could. You grabbed a couple of the speakers or put them up on stage because tying into our main speakers wasn't going to work because of how it's run and done. And
not
so,
in time.
No, there was no way.
Exactly.
There's just not. And so we're literally going through. And now the other thing that happens is between the band and the vocalists, what y'all have in your ears.
Right.
It went from, they hear everything they need to. They have their own mixes to, okay, no, y'all got to share.
You may or may not hear anything.
Exactly.
It's going to be difficult because we do run what we call tracks. So you have a metronome in their ear and a guide, basically. So there's a lot of things that for them to not have that would have been at some level a little bit catastrophic.
For sure. Difficult, for sure.
Yeah. So it was not only getting the instruments plugged in to the new system and getting all of those things done so that in addition to it, there was sound going out from it and the right people could hear what they needed to hear so they could sing and or play, you know, i.e. a drummer needs to hear a metronome. So suffice to say, literally got it all set up, done, running with 2 minutes to spare before 9:30.
And it was good.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, it wasn't great. You know, I mean, at least on our, to our standards. But it was good. It was really good.
But that's God. I mean, he took something crazy, and I mean, I'm sure y'all noticed I was like running around like crazy, and some people are like, "Is he mad?" No, I'm like, "No." That Jeremiah goes, "No, he's just focused. He's
in the zone.
I'm in the zone. I knew what I needed to
get stuff done.
And it wasn't one of those things where I could just tell somebody else, "Here's what you need to do," because it would have taken 10 times longer. I just did it.
Well, I mean, and to your point about hats, I mean, one of the things I would mention is that like nobody got a glimpse of happening, and this is like God and the Holy Spirit both like in conjunction working with us and in our skill sets that we all had in that moment. And one of the things that I thought was so cool was our leader Jeremiah had the humility to step back and say, "Okay, Chris, what do you need from me?" And then when you said nothing, just stay out of my way, he stayed out of your way. And then at the same time,
didn't quite say that.
No, he didn't.
No, No,
I didn't even really have to ask.
Yes, exactly. But that awareness in all three of us, because even I knew, like, being the new person here, I knew nothing. So there was nothing that I was going to be able to contribute to the situation.
What are you doing
to
now?
Fix this problem.
What does that plug do?
But my best case scenario was my best case scenario for me was I had enough of a relationship with everybody on the team who was on stage that I could speak to them and keep them calm and not have panic in set, because that can happen, because when we're talking about an entire upheaval of what you're hearing in your ears and what you've been doing for the last few years, it's very difficult to manage that transition. And I was very grateful to just be a part of that and be able to contribute in that way. So
well, but all of that comes back to our philosophy in our planning and in our implementation, all that stuff. It's all about, we are going to worship today. The end of the day, that is what we're going to do. And we're going to do it to the best of our ability, and we're going to create an atmosphere for these hundreds of people that come that's going to be the best that we can offer. Yeah,
for sure.
And so that was the mentality. And it always is, but that part didn't change. Given our circumstances, what is the best scenario that we can help create's not the right word, but foster, I think is maybe a better way to put it, that people will be able to come in to worship, to hear God's word, to grow, to be genuinely transformed a little more as we hope happens. Because the real truth is, if we got nothing working, if it was just Darren talking loud, and I told Andres that we might have to,
we were that close,
sing and just play really loud and see what happens. We would have done that. And it still would have been great, because we still would have worshipped. And say, given whatever scenario, like, that's the goal. End of the day, right? That we create an atmosphere of authentic worship.
And that was a pretty regular conversation amongst the three of us, which was, look, God's going to get the glory one way or the other, because even if we'd given our very best effort and nothing had worked, it wasn't like we were going to somehow make God's glory so much better that Sunday.
We weren't going to
we were going to make God so much better in everybody's eyes, because all of a sudden we're not using sound systems, we're not using instruments. No, that is the core of what we do every Sunday.
And to go back to kind of the original posing of what we're discussing today, the how to make a Sunday, you start with, well, Sunday we're going to worship. That is the, like, not Sunday we're going to have a service, or Sunday we're going to have a show, Sunday we're going to whatever. We are going to worship.
We're going to worship.
Everything else is dictated out of that thought process, that mentality, and which is why we have such, I think, just genuine, engaging gatherings. And it's not. I mean, there's certainly that's not a competitive statement in any way. It's not better or worse or any of that kind of stuff. But I can just say that there's genuinely such great engagement and, like I said, just genuine passion and comfortability, and all that stuff that really does come a long way. Chris, so obviously that was not a fun Sunday. We also were very relieved at the end of it that it was over.
Yes.
And thankfully, like, through the week we got it back. It was working again, all that kind of stuff.
Literally got with the company that makes the board, and between the U.S. rep, because it's a English UK company, first of all. They have a U.S. rep. Between him and myself, we have now written a manual that they will produce, and just in the event that this should ever happen again to anybody else, not just us, this is what you do.
How exciting that we got to be part of that new...
We made history.
New SOP for this
history.
That's
exactly right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yep.
God chose us for that. That's wonderful.
So if you have a Digico board, I know every in and out of it, specifically in SD9.
Yes.
And if that meant nothing to you, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to talk a bit, like, zoom out a little bit, and we can talk a little bit more just about. So, what do you love about what you do? Your side of it. What's the thing that? Because here's the reality. I've said this before in our team, but part of the reason I love this team, we all kind of choose to do this. We're all called to ministry, of course, but we don't have to do this. We have skill sets we could use other places, and I mean, quite honestly, generally most of our staff does. That's the truth. But especially somebody like you who has like production skills, and you've done and worked in other really like cool big things, and but what is it that about the church and ministry that makes that what you choose to do every week, all week, and all those things?
Well, I mean, bottom line is the people.
Yeah.
So in the corporate production world, it's a very cutthroat business.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You're in it for yourself. You only do it for yourself. You promote only yourself.
And you have to if you want to get ahead.
If you really want to be successful, that is the nature of the business.
Yep.
And it's very, very negative because you're tearing down other really talented people, and if you're not careful, you get backstabbed a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's a lot of extra stuff that it wears you out. Yep. And it takes away from your creativity. You could be the person that is just the doer and you're following along, but it just, after a while, it wears on you so much, and you lose who you are and why you got into. Because most of us that are doing, I mean, you do it as well, is that there's a creative side to it.
Yeah.
That's very freeing. There's a lot of fun, cool places you've seen done and opportunities, right? And that's the fun side of it. The business side of it is it's never fun.
Yeah.
Has never been. So the ministry that's here is because of that. It's the people. You get to interact not only with the volunteers that are on your team, but people coming in and out of worship, in and out of the service. Yep. And to where, there again, it's back to this idea of atmosphere architect, where you're staying out of the way. It's like when they don't notice you, that's a great Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds really backwards, but it's true. When they have zero idea of what it took to get there, all the moving components, all the volunteers that are there going, plus that you don't see, and nobody notices it and nobody says anything, that's the best Sunday. It's getting out of the way, but still using technology from an LED wall or a projector or a light to create that moment, because as humans, we are a feel first generation.
Sure.
Yeah.
And side note, Jeremiah knows this, he hadn't said it yet, but my actual degree is, I have a master's in marriage and family therapy.
Right.
So the human psyche side of it is kind of weird how God has taken that and said, okay, look, you've got some technical skills, but you've also got this, humans, and kind of blend it together. So that's originally how ministry kind of started for me. And so looking at that, going, how do people think, act, and feel? And it should be in that order: think, act, feel. But we do it backwards. We feel, we act out of that feeling, then we think about.
Think about it later.
Yeah, and it's like,
God dang it, it's not different.
Exactly.
So the tech side is being able to use, and lack of a better term, they're my toys, right? Every light, every sound. I'm always messing or tweaking with something, right? So how do I use those tools, those instruments, in order to create that moment that's wrapped around all the way back to the beginning of what we're talking about, wrapped around a sermon series or a verse or whatever it may be, even a song sometimes, because we do have Night of Worship coming up. Even at that point, to then create that moment for people, because they're going to feel something first.
Yeah, for sure.
And then that feeling, just like for me, I know when God's really speaking to me when I have like goosebumps up and down my arms, right? So everyone has that body human feeling of when we know God and the Spirit's moving through us.
Yep.
So it's not the same for everybody. So you have to create situations. But what it does is it ushers the Holy Spirit to come in, because sometimes people have to let go of whatever's going on in their life for that moment.
Yeah.
And they may need that nudge.
It's them. Right.
Absolutely.
Any given scenario,
Yep.
it's about your posture and your choice to worship, to engage.
Yeah.
But like I said, hopefully we're creating an atmosphere
we want that
easy,
environment.
That it's easy to do that for you. That you don't feel weird, you don't feel awkward, and that you're kind of led down a path, led down like kind of a story of the day. We really try hard to construct not just experiential elements, but really truly thematically and scripturally, and where we pray and all those things are very intentional to help lead us to place that, as you said before, goes back to the thing that how God has led Darren,
Right.
of how he's supposed to lead and teach his people that day, and what he's teaching about, what scripture that comes from, and that just kind of bleeds out onto everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk about that a little bit, though, Andrew. From the song side of stuff, how do you describe when? So it's not our favorite songs.
Yeah.
It's not our just what we like or whatever. So let's talk about that a little, of just what that ends up looking like and how we actually work through that.
Yeah, I mean, to what Chris was saying, I mean, it's the difference between being in that cutthroat industry of, doing everything for the self-service component of, I'm going to eventually get some kind of financial gain from this. All that we do here is not to our own glory. It's to the glory of God. And so, and even more than that too, by extension, not only giving glory to God, but then also honoring our brothers and sisters when they come in here. Because it's not just about the people we're serving on our teams.
Right.
It's the people in the room who are sitting in the congregation, right? That's why we deliberately choose to say, we're looking at a set list for Sunday and say, you know what, man, all of these songs fit his point. But we've actually deliberately eliminated, whether on purpose or by accident, not doing a song that is solely honoring God.
Yeah.
And we have to say, no, that's not good enough. God deserves all the glory. We're missing something here, and that needs to be in there. Yeah. And sometimes that's us deliberately choosing to put a song in there like A Living Hope, or a song that we've sung maybe 1,000 times over again, and maybe, in our heart of hearts, and the pride within us says, I really don't want to sing this song again. And that's the honest truth for us.
It is.
It really is the honest truth for us. Yeah. But that is the cool space to be in, to walk in on Sunday morning and know that the reason it's there is because it's not for my purpose. It's not for my purpose. It is for God's purpose. And that is also the cool thing about that whole day when everything went wrong. We often talked about how, for whatever reason, the set list that we had for that Sunday, it was a whole bunch of songs that we
Bangers.
That's we knew. We knew it. We knew that the band
people are going to sing.
Band was going to know it. The vocalists were going to know it, and the people were going to know it.
And he already knew.
And
God already knew those were the songs we were going to.
And they were singing, man. Yeah. They were singing.
Yeah, I do think that's really cool. Because we also had it the next week as well, where we had a sound issue totally separate, which gave me a lot more anxiety.
So backstory on that. Because we've, the stage is built electronically speaking, from an electrical standpoint, not to do what we're doing.
Right.
Just case in point. So, what we call the back line. So, it's the back set of lights, it's the lights on the floor, it's the audio rack that's back there, and it's the back LED wall. Well, it was also stormy that day, which is also a crazy phenomenon in this building. Yeah. Whenever it storms, something weird happens. Without fail.
It's like this building was built on the Lost Island.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's there's weird electromagnetic something stuff that happens.
And everything inside of it, lost toys,
static lightning 50 miles away somehow affects this building.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that being said, it's always kind of the game that we play of, okay, if we plug in something, we move something, okay, is it going to hold? Is it going to? And so what had happened that Sunday was literally in the middle of that, the breakers, there's two of them that go, the entire back wall went straight off.
Boom.
And so everything from the front side, and the funny part was I was actually, you were in there, we were in the broadcast room.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was fixing another issue for something else that had happened because of the storm. And I literally touched a wire, and then we hear this pop.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at you like, okay, just what happened?
What happened? Yeah.
Right? And so, thank God, it was not the soundboard that we had just fixed.
Yes.
It was a scary moment.
Literally just a moment of going, if that was it, oh no, here we go again, versus no, we just found out that it was power that had tripped. And so rerouted a couple of things in the dark. Well, Darren, less than 10 minutes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Rerouted a couple of things so it didn't do it again, and then turned everything back on, and we were
Darren
fine.
was the man. He just
Yeah.
stayed
He
right
just kept
on
on
it.
going.
He
Didn't
just
miss
kept
a
on
beat.
going.
Yep.
Nope.
Congregation was great. They were appreciative.
Well, that's what I was
they
going to
were
get
just-
to. Really, like, yeah, that is the cool thing that is great to experience, and just proves out what we've been saying about what's special about our gatherings. The people really are there to worship and to engage, and instead of shrinking because this is nerve wracking and the sound's not great and whatever, they just sang louder to cover it.
They did.
And the same with Darren's preaching. Like everybody got real quiet and focused in. It was just this. It's been a really cool thing to see those reactions.
Yeah.
You know, of as we are internally, you know, in flux, trying to
That's a nice way to say it.
deal with all this stuff and get things going as quickly as possible while not freaking out, while not treating people poorly, while not, you know, all those things. That they just roll with it, and you know.
There's two things to be said from that. First of all is thank you, congregation, because
Seriously.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that
Y'all
could have
are
been
incredible.
thank you, right? Second to that is it's a testament to our volunteers too.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't panic. They didn't say, oh my gosh, I'm out. They just rolled with it, right? And so that allows us, of all the things that we do in a week, all the preparation, I write SOPs for tech team and cross-train people, and, you know, we have a repertoire of songs that we can do and great players and could pull out an acoustic and a cajon or whatever it needs to be.
Right.
Yep.
We have all those things set up and ready at any point in time, and that's the massive testament to the time that we take on a Monday, to what we put in, the little details, because our goal is we want our volunteers to walk in on a Sunday, and for lack of a better term, almost a plug and play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Same thing. Make it as easy and attainable as possible.
Easy as possible. Come in, plug in your guitar, sit down at the drums, sit down at your station on tech team, production team, and go.
Yeah.
All that stuff set up and done, so that they can not worry about. I mean, you had said this earlier. They're not. I don't want them stressed. None of us want them stressed. We want them to come in, to be unhindered, to then worship. Because when they worship, the congregation worships.
Yeah. Yep. It's all flows outward that way. I've always said there's like a 50% return from what happens on the stage.
Yeah.
If you are insecure and weird or whatever on stage, that's the atmosphere you set.
Right.
That's what we were talking about. That and kind of responsible for creating that atmosphere, and that's once again not a showy atmosphere or a hey everybody look at me or listen to me or whatever. Yeah. It's sing with me. Let's declare these things together. Let's pray these things together. Understanding that what we're doing is way more. Yep. And not just different than, but way more than like a concert or a show. Even though a lot of the elements of what we deal with may be similar to that.
Yeah, they can fall in that category, but the purpose and the intent is completely different.
Right. And that changes how we approach all those things.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't change, and maybe it does from the other side of the excellence we try to approach it with, to give our absolute best every time, but the end of the day, we don't want people walking away, as you said, like, wow, that was cool. Yeah. That was awesome. Yeah. No. They sounded great. That's not what we're hoping for.
Or even the people who are insular to us, who know about all the stuff that's going on, we don't even want them walking away with the idea of like, oh man, did you see what Andrew and Jeremiah did? That was incredible. That was amazing. Like, no, that's not why we do what we do. I mean, 60% of the work that we do throughout the week, I mean, we talked about the idea of, we pick the songs. Yeah, we look at Darren's sermon. But honestly, like 60% of my week, maybe even more than that, is what we talked about. It's equipping people. Yeah. It's equipping people with the things that they need and being in regular dialogue with them to know what's missing. Yep. Because if they don't have those things, then weird on stage is going to happen. Weird in the tech booth is going to happen. And that is a reflection of how I did during the week to prepare them. Not even prepare myself, just prepare them. Yeah. And so like that's the progression. Getting the sermon, picking the songs, and then from there it's equip.
you just brought something up, so I'm just curious if you guys have stories. Well, I know you have stories. So I'm sure you do. So you said how things can get weird on stage, and how things get weird in the tech booth. So my first question is, what is your like number one? Oh crap moment. Like, what's the thing that you're scared to death most of, like in the tech booth? No, like, but you personally, like say you're running sound. What is the thing that scares you the most, or what are you most afraid of doing on stage in front of people?
Sure.
For me, it's forgetting what's next.
Mm-hmm.
That scares me to death.
Sure.
Like, 'cause when we're leading, right? We're on stage, You're worshiping, you're singing, but the truth is, the other half of my brain is thinking about, okay, so communion's next, and
and you're looking down at the confidence monitor. You see what's coming up and going, even if it's the next line, verse, or whatever that's coming up.
But there's this little part of me that's like, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
What if I start into giving or forget that baptism's here or whatever? Because I've done that before. It's not great. Doesn't make you feel good.
Yep.
Anyway, so I'm curious for you guys, what is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's definitely probably number one on my list similarly because, share roles on the stage. But I would say 2, 3 after that would be I forget what I'm going to say on a particular moment where I'm going to say anything, because one of my worst memories of that.
We're going to take communion now.
One of my worst memories of that was I forgot what I was going to say, and I literally in front of the congregation said brain fart in front of them. I just because I'm sorry everybody, I had a brain fart. We're moving on to the next one. And then the third thing on my list of things that I'm most terrified of is not starting a song in tune.
Oh yeah,
on the
wrong key.
Like starting in on the wrong key, and it doesn't even like
Worship
not
fails.
just me singing. It's the song doesn't start in the right key, especially because we use tracks. So 1, 2, and 3, those would be my top 3. Like. Absolutely terrified.
So that this is a great example. So this Sunday we came out after the sermon.
Yep.
And in first service, I think.
Yes.
And you guys were playing in C.
Yes.
Because Resurrecting was still up on the screen or whatever, what you rolled to or whatever.
Yes.
And the next song we were singing, Resurrender, is in D.
In D.
But I heard that and I was like, oh no, like. They're playing in the wrong key for the song that's going to start.
Yep.
And Resurrender doesn't have hardly any introduction to speak of. And so going from C to all of a sudden D would have been kind of a train wreck. Thankfully, we caught it and we were able to adjust it before it became a thing. But it is the kind of thing that can easily happen.
Exactly.
And then you end up with this like horrible train wreck.
For sure.
So what about you?
Aside from what's already happened,
yeah. I mean, the truth is, things are in our side. I'm not scared of technology failing because I know it will happen.
Yeah,
that doesn't scare me. It's more like like what am I going to screw up?
Yeah. The truth to be told is, it's when I don't have an answer.
Yes, that's
what scares me. Yeah. Like I remember being here in the very, very beginning. And it was one of the things where...
It's only a year and a half ago.
And...
He's been here a long time now.
Forever.
Yeah.
He knows all the answers now.
We joke about it, like, okay, what room has what and what... Right. It's I didn't know all the things that this building had, how it was wired, where stuff was at, where it was run. And slowly but surely, we've uncovered all those things because...
We did that recently.
Exactly. In that moment, my biggest fear is whatever happens on tech, because you're right. Something always does, and we know that's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's pretty inevitable.
What we had a couple Sundays ago was disastrous. We always have, every Sunday something happens. That is like the normal. Nothing is ever perfect, even if it seems perfect, that's part of the job. That's part of what we got to do. Is to bury it and make sure nobody notices.
Exactly. Yeah, so my biggest fear is when whatever that is, whatever it may be, that I don't have an answer.
That's fair.
At the tech booth side of things, it's when, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, at the soundboard, you know the thing that you're supposed to unmute or bring up or whatever next, and you can't find it. Like you forget where it is, and then you start hitting buttons, and then your brain freezes, and it's 3 seconds, but it feels like
eternity.
It is the worst feeling of, it's like I lost my keys
Yeah.
or I lost my wallet. That's the pit in your stomach feeling.
Missing, and that would probably be, secondary and it can be a video, audio, it doesn't matter, but missing a cue is what they're called, right? So when you're supposed to mute something, unmute, when you're supposed to trigger a light, when you're supposed to stop, whatever it may be, you miss that moment where it's that weird feeling of, it's cold in this room, and 2 seconds later, a heartbeat later, you missed a cue and you're sweating.
It's true.
Boom.
Absolutely.
Like, I got to go change. I mean, it's just that oh my gosh moment.
It makes you feel terrible.
Well, I feel like a collective shared panic for all of us actually would probably be the fact that our slides are actually automated to run with our tracks, and
Pins and needles every week.
And it's based off of a network connection, how it sends its signal and all that stuff. And I would say that all three of us probably have a collective shared panic of, is it going to lose its connection? Because we all know internet connections are unstable at best, and we can't always trust them in any given circumstance.
500 people with cell phones into a room.
Exactly. And all of a sudden we lose that, and our slides person doesn't realize it. We realize it on stage. We have no way to communicate because we're in the middle of a song. How are we supposed to communicate that the song's
next words,
exactly?
They ain't coming.
Yep.
That's scary.
That's a good group fear.
Although I'm less panicked about that now because it happens so often.
This is
now
true.
I'm like just waiting for the shoe to drop on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost expect it to happen more than I expect it to work.
Yeah, and so it's catching those things, and and luck. I mean, it does happen because or if somebody starts the wrong track, which has happened before, of how we start it and trigger it, of all of the tech team being just on alert. That's why we have service coordinator, is to kind of have that 30,000-foot view of looking out and going, oh, wait, that slide didn't move. Is it moving? Is it not moving? Oh, wait, that didn't happen. Okay, we need to, and then telling everybody what needs to happen so that we literally never miss a beat.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I think I like our Monday meetings, is that even though it sounds like we talk about like, oh, what went wrong? What was this? Really, we wind up coming away with the win of, okay, what do we need to do to make this better than the week before?
And how do we have this conversation all the time of mitigating failure points.
Exactly.
Like, how do we create this, have this set up in a way that there's least amount of chances for it to go horrendously wrong?
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's not I don't know that any of us would say we're perfectionists. That's not the goal. That's not that's never really the intention, honestly. Like, it's not what we shoot for. We do really strongly believe in excellence and effort and being able to, and once again, serve people well. That's a lot. I think, to kind of go back to what we were saying earlier, look at the difference between doing this and somewhere else. The truth is, we're serving people here. We're not creating something for ourselves that we can then go brag about later. It's about serving our people well and our obligation to serve those people. And I am thankful we have a situation where our band is all volunteers. Our tech people are all volunteers. What those people are able to do purely from an amateur standpoint. They're not getting paid to do this. They're not professionals. They're not, though some of them probably could be similarly if they wanted to. Although the guys they would be professionals.
They would be professionals.
They're teaching the next.
They're teaching the next generation of music.
So it's always great when we get professionals that are part of our group.
Right. Well, and the fact that the fact that they willingly volunteer too. Like,
exactly.
That's hard to come by in the music.
But at the end of the day, that is it. Like, it is. Everything they do is sacrifice, right? All the effort they put in, all the time they put in, all the effort to be excellent is all sacrifice. And so the obligation to serve and honor that that part doesn't scare me, but that does weigh heavily.
Oh yeah, for sure.
On me. And as we're coming up with these plans and praying about things and asking God where it guides, like, that's always kind of lives right on the edge of my thinking of how is this. When we're in creative meetings, we have this concept called the umbrella of mercy, which means basically this is about to be a terrible idea, but here it goes. Please give me an umbrella of mercy on this idea. Or it means we're like thinking out, like, it's not
Don't
not
take
a
this seriously.
It's not a
thought.
full-
It's
Yep.
just
Full-fledged, not happening.
no. I'm just spitting out what's in my head. But under that umbrella of mercy, like making sure we have that umbrella of mercy for all those people
Absolutely.
that we then rely on.
Yeah.
We get to come up with these crazy ideas and cool things and whatever, and then say, all right, volunteers, here's what we're doing.
Pull it off.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's asking a lot. And so, trying to respect that and honor that. That's a big deal too, I think.
For sure. Well, and I would say thank you, volunteers, big time, because like for us, it doesn't go unnoticed. Like it's not just that. Yeah, we've done all this equipping and we've given you all the tools you need to be successful. But the fact that you go in and you take those tools and you run with it week in and week out, like even our musicians across the board showing up every week prepared, listening to the tracks.
Yeah.
Our tech people, watching our tech people, even the slides person, like go through the sermon notes and be like, okay, here's this is going to be something I don't want to miss. This is going to be something I don't want to miss. Them being intentional with that, like that warms my heart to see that they don't just like we said, just show up and okay, cool, I'm this person who's just tapping this button.
It's not a warm body
It's not
ministry.
a warm body ministry at all. It's very
no.
evident that they care and it matters to them, and that means something to me as well.
I would say along these lines, one thing I think is very common, I think this happens in lots of churches, that seem to do things well, that seem to pull off services at a high level, and there's good quality, all that kind of stuff. I think there's maybe a misperception that like you're not needed.
Right.
If you're here and not serving in this arena, if you have a skill set or whatever, that you're not needed somehow because things are seemingly working well.
Right.
There is always space.
Yep.
For 1 more, 2 more, 10 more, 20
For
more.
sure.
Because
It's the heart that matters.
yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the truth. The like for this side of it, for the tech and musical, whatever, the stuff that really directly that we're affecting, right? It will go as incredibly as the volunteers can allow it to.
Yep.
Right? So the next big idea, the only real thing that's holding it back is whether or not we have the right people to enact it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so if that's a thought for you, if you're thinking like, yeah, man, I would love to be part of that, but I highly doubt they need me. Everything seems like it's going
Wrong.
Right.
We definitely need you.
Yeah.
And it's probably easier than you think as well to be part of.
Sure.
Like Chris does a great job of training people. If you're a musician, you play a guitar of whatever kind or keyboard, or you sing or you play drums or whatever, and you're thinking, they have musicians. Yeah, we do.
We do, yeah.
We would love to have more musicians.
We would
Absolutely.
love it.
And you see that as we have gained those people, the band grows, the sound grows in ability, and the songs we can play, and the styles we can pull off, and all those things. So as those gifts and talents fall into our lap, we get to take those and take them to the.
Well, I mean,
to
a
the
perfect
next level.
a perfect example of that is we got worship night coming up, right? Like we have a big idea that we're really excited about, but I would think that all three of us would agree, like, okay, can we it's essential for us to be able to pull this off, and we can't pull it off without volunteers at all.
Yeah,
and
literally, the question is, do we have the people to pull
do we
this
have
off?
the people to pull this off? And we're super grateful for the band and the tech people who've agreed to be there, and that would be an example of stuff that we do here at Current, like where we need you to be here, because a lot of things that you don't see that go on behind the scenes as well is, things that are beyond our control, people getting sick, people being out of town, and having to fill those positions. Those are the times where we need people to step up and be willing to step up in those gaps where we need them.
And it does happen all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And part of what we do, I mean, we all three do this, and the ministry side of it is the more people means that there is not this, because a lot of times you can get burnout in ministry.
Yeah.
And what we never,
especially as a volunteer.
absolutely, we don't want to create situations where somebody would ever feel that way.
Yeah.
So having more,
No, we want you to be part of this team for years and years.
Bingo.
Yeah, and be itching to serve again.
absolutely. So by growing the team means that you can have a week off, because the other side of this is forget burnout, forget all that for a second. When you are up there serving, leading, running tech, whatever, there is the propensity to kind of disengage a little bit. And if you're doing that all the time, then you're missing the whole point of why you're even here on a Sunday.
Right.
Absolutely.
So having that time off, rotating people in, is why you see a lot of different people in tech, you see a lot of different people on stage singing, whatever it may be, to rotate those people in and out, so that opportunity for them to worship and them to worship with their families.
Yeah, that they can sit and worship and be part of that congregation and continue to grow that worship culture
Yep.
by being part of the congregation too.
Absolutely.
We really believe strongly in that philosophy of, if you're not on stage, how you lead in your seat.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not in the booth,
Yes.
how you lead in your seat
Yep.
is just as, if not more important than that other time.
Yeah.
It's just as important in
Yeah.
helping lead the church forward in this culture.
And even though it's far less often for all three of us to be able to sit in the congregation all the time, we do try to model that for even our volunteers.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why there's a Sunday where Jeremiah leads, there's a Sunday where I lead, and why Chris also has training people up so that he can step aside, step into the congregation, and sit down with the people that he cares about, and be able to worship God. To be, again, facilitating that culture, not just for us, and not also take for granted the fact that we get blessed to be paid to do what we do.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, no, it is pretty cool that we get to do what we do, and then and that should be stated. Like, even though we might have other options, this is a privilege.
Yes,
it is
what we get to do. It's a really cool privilege.
It is,
and it's not unlike getting to make ice cream sundaes all the time.
Exactly.
What we get to do.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, we do that a lot around here.
see what you did
Full
there.
circle.
It's true though.
Back to the ice cream.
Yeah, like what we get to be part of creating is so satisfying and so fulfilling, and so, you think about all the other projects that you could be part of, things you could be creating. We talked about this last time when we talked like the music you would be making otherwise, the shows you would be producing otherwise. There's nothing better than being part of the culmination of unification of God's people worshiping Him.
Yep.
There's no better product.
Yeah.
No.
And that's the cool thing that we get to be part of. And we do try to give excellence to it and all those things. But I mean, really, we're the ones who get to benefit. And that's why the Sundays thing really struck me. Maybe that's the preacher in me. There must be metaphors and everything.
Yeah.
But
In this case, ice cream today.
Yeah.
that's what it is today.
Yes.
It's what's it like Shrek where everybody loves parfaits? Is that the
Parfaits.
Who doesn't like parfaits?
Exactly.
And I think that's really a lot with stuff we get to do.
Yeah.
It's not a have to, it's a get to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that makes, that's there again, the heart transformation side of it.
Yeah.
We get to do this.
Yeah.
We don't have to do this. We get to.
Yeah.
Coming in on a Sunday morning, it may be early, but I get to do it.
Yeah. It's then what we get to be part of seeing and what we get to be part of experiencing is, even though some days aren't real exciting, like the days when the soundboard goes up, but those are so minimal.
Yeah.
We all have horror stories, of course, but
For sure.
compared to what all the win stories that we get to be part of,
Absolutely.
and all that stuff. And we've talked about several of them here, but it's not anywhere close to those things.
Yeah, well, because we it's easy for us in this kind of ministry because we're either on stage or even doing so much behind the scenes. It's so easy for us to take for granted the fact that God doesn't really need us to move His message forward. He can do it Himself. He proved that in His Word, right?
Absolutely.
So the get to component is so huge. Like, it's just that reminder. I mean, that was the big thing about that day, was it was just a reminder of like, I'm not worried because God's got this, and God has equipped my fellow brothers here with me on this team with the skill sets necessary to accomplish whatever needs to be accomplished and whatever His plan is. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's a humbling thing. It really is. makes you realize how small you are, how little is in your control.
Yeah.
How much all of our planning and efforts and all that kind of stuff, end of the day.
They don't
I
matter.
mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Unless God's in it.
right. It's helpful to give us somewhere to start, I guess, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like, you know, it's all up to him ultimately. So, before we wrap today, I want to know what your favorite ice cream is.
I
There it
knew
is. There it is.
I knew that was
I
coming.
knew it was coming too.
Okay, then quit stalling and tell me the
But
answer.
I was waiting for the lead in because I was going to ask him that question because I knew he was going to end with it.
You wanted to just trump him. I get you.
I wanted to,
Yeah,
but
you
I'll
wanted
give
to-
him the
Save it
benefit.
first time.
Yes.
Yeah, we know.
It's the benefit of getting to ask the questions.
Just
Go
because you're on
for
that
it.
side of the
That's
table.
what I'm saying. Just because
I'm a simple man. My favorite ice cream is
be a simple
is
kind of man.
cookie dough ice cream.
Nice.
Okay.
So, well, hold on. Follow-up question.
Yes.
Is that like, do you then for like a sundae? Is that the ice cream you choose if you were to get like you know?
Oh, I mean, if I was
thing
gonna
that's
get
piling up or whatever.
if I was gonna do a sundae, I would still probably do cookie dough. But
Interesting.
then usually my toppings will cover a whole range of stuff that is anything but chocolate chip based.
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah, you're not gonna stack
Yeah.
a bunch of chocolate on top
Exactly.
of it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but here's the follow-up question for
Oh
you.
boy, here we go.
Because now that you're in Texas,
Yes.
what's the brand?
Well, I would say the brand at this point is Bluebell because that's the one that both me and my wife have enjoyed the most. We've tried a couple of other ones. There's actually a
touch
brand we
Bluebell.
found that is made by special needs kids that they build the ice cream stuff themselves. We tried those ones; they were pretty good. I like the idea of what we've already talked about, buying
Local.
stuff that's in the local community that is also doing a
Supports,
good
yeah.
service to people in need and stuff like that. So we've had that. I can't remember the name of the brand of it now, but that was
that's cool.
It was a good one.
Nice.
So we've converted him to Bluebell.
I mean, I'm not going to do dryers.
I'm about to
no.
make
Not
Chris
big,
really
yeah.
mad and be
Uh-oh.
and I don't. I mean,
But you don't
fine.
do that with anything.
it's ice cream.
You're like the
It's ice cream.
anti just to be anti
That-
sometimes.
no, it's not just to be anti. I'm just saying, people down here act like Bluebell is God's gift to mankind, and it is good. And I will give like they do have like seasonal, interesting flavors, but I ain't paying twice as much.
And we went from 300 listeners to 150 listeners.
No, this is
just
increasing
right now.
because they'll all get upset about it. Just say, my
Cliffhanger
perspective
at the end.
is that whatever amount it is better, if it is at all, that it's not enough to justify usually like the cost differential in my mind. That's my.
I completely understand that because in California, my favorite brand was Ben and Jerry's, but Ben and Jerry's is like ridiculously expensive. For just a small
little bit.
you're getting.
little thing,
Yeah.
like it's not reasonable.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anyway,
All right, drum roll. So simple. Just vanilla.
interesting.
How did I know that?
My son as well.
But it's got
the
to be.
scent that he puts in our fog. He's
true.
the most vanilla
Haze.
man.
Haze.
It is not.
Why would
Sorry,
you do
haze.
that? Why would you say that out loud?
Okay, so when we go to episode part B, of
I'm
this,
thinking about
we'll
I'm thinking
explain.
about the slide names and stuff like that. That's what they name it. Sorry.
So yeah, vanilla, but it needs to be the home style, not the French vanilla, but the home style vanilla of Bluebell.
Okay.
Couple of reasons. It's usually the base of every ice cream, anyways,
Sure.
to a certain degree, right?
For sure.
Secondly, whatever mood I may be feeling, you can set that mood. If I feel like chocolate. Now, when I was growing up, it was always that hard shell stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
Shell stuff, yeah.
There was something about the hardness of that with the vanilla underneath.
Or like the Dairy Queen dipped cone.
Yeah,
kind of
there you
deal.
go. Mhm.
Okay, soft serve is different.
Oh, okay.
Now you're opening
All
a whole other
right.
can of worms.
Okay,
man.
connoisseur.
This is why this is a
We
good
only
question.
have so
You learn a
many-
lot about a person.
We don't have so much
Connoisseur.
time in this episode, man.
So if
really
you want
keep
to,
going.
We keep going, yeah.
if you want, okay, so soft serve is a different thing because it's a whole different texture. It's a whole different.
Yes.
Dairy Queen, by far, hands down, got to have the dipped cone.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it's still vanilla based underneath.
Sure.
Oh, for
That's
sure.
what I'm saying. Though. You would like that. Like.
Yep.
So when I was a kid, after T-ball games, one of the things, if we would go to Dairy Queen in the tiny little town that we grew up on, middle of nowhere, northern Michigan. But dilly bars, do you remember dilly bars?
They were on the stick.
do.
Yeah, it's basically like
It's the same thing, just on a stick.
On the stick. But yes, that was a.
Because they would package those and you can get a box of them or whatever.
Yeah.
You'd go down to the little freezer that's inside of Dairy Queen. You can get a dozen of them or whatever and take them home.
My wife and I have been enjoying those the Bluebell Rice Krispie, just vanilla chocolate. dip.
Oh, the crispy.
The crispy bar thing.
Yep.
Ice cream bars.
Yeah, we enjoy those.
Interesting.
It's great with the kid because
Oh,
the kids because we give him a popsicle and we get to have our own little
Nice.
separate snack, which is nice.
Yeah. Don't wait. It won't be long, and he'll be eating all of those as well.
I know.
So for me, ice cream in general, I'm not a huge sweets guy. I'm not. Like my fatal flaw is salty snacks.
Yep.
So
I eat all the bags of chips that are in your office.
yeah. Well, there's not any right now. I need to get more.
He is due.
No, his due is over there.
Yeah, right. But so that said, ice cream generally, I'm a shake guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
More so anyway. But I do love like Sonic Blast. They're those like mixer things or like a Dairy Queen Blizzard.
Okay.
Like
Okay,
those
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
snares. And generally my go-to is the Reese's with vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
I like the balance. I like this, but the saltiness of the peanut butter in there.
Yep.
But I also like salted caramel shakes, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I like balanced flavors. I don't love just like
One-
you were saying, piled on sweet, just
no.
crush you
Yep.
with sugar kind
For
of
sure.
deal. So
That's because also the thing about the vanilla. It's not overly
Yeah.
sweet with a whole bunch of stuff.
It's true.
yeah, for
True.
sure. Yeah. See,
Vanilla's
Interesting
the
things you learn.
base of my ice cream. My
it
favorite
is.
ice cream. So yeah.
Interesting. We're just a bunch of
Vanilla dudes.
basic people.
Yep.
Boring guys that like balance and interesting, additions.
Too old for that excitement anymore.
Too old for that excitement. Anyway, good talk today, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out. We do this all the time. We talk a lot and hang out all the time. But it's cool to share some of these things. So, and hopefully we didn't kill our listenership with
This is true.
getting into nerd stuff too early.
Yep.
But I do think it is really important that people understand, have a concept of how their church works, how their church functions, and how those things on Sundays come together. And what we do is kind of template's not the right word, but it's a good picture of what happens in a lot of the other ministries. Like Current Kids is kind of a micro version of that. Current Students, they do kind of a micro version of that. Like it's a good understanding of the type of planning and intentionality and attempts at excellence that is being brought in all these other scenarios. That while we do try to maintain a very real and authentic and genuine connection and vibe, and to feel very casual in a lot of ways, the other side we take extremely seriously of not being a distraction, not causing stumbling blocks for people, and
It's not about us.
and creating an environment that easily and clearly points people to Jesus, and that they can, as kind of we say around here, show up and lead different. That's the whole idea.
So stay tuned to the next Win episode where you show up and leave different.
Hopefully you don't.
With our host, Jeremiah Chambers.
Yeah.
You just ruined it because it's not about me, Chris.
Yeah. It's not about.
Not supposed.
But he's the host.
and yeah, it's not about.
It's not about him. Come on, man.
Having too much fun.
We are.
Good meeting today, guys. Thank you both, and go team.
Go team.
Go team.
Thanks so much for joining us for this Win Meeting. Be sure to follow us on Instagram @The Win Meeting and to subscribe to the Current Christian Church channel on YouTube. We'd also love to hear your wins, so send us a message on our Instagram and share with us some of the ways God is winning in your life.